Hey, this is Shane Greer, co-owner and co-publisher of Campaigns and Elections, back for another Campaign Insider with someone that many of you will know, Art Hackney of Hackney and Hackney, former president, former chairman of the American Association of Political Consultants. Before we get into that, though, thanks, as always, to our sponsor, Probolsky Research, with opinion research on politics and public policy. Art, great to have you in the C&E office. Thanks for stopping in.
It's an honor to be here, and I think I am less well known than you, thanks to this podcast.
Well, I expect you do yourself a disservice there. One of the kind of the household names for me in the industry. One of the things I found fascinating, kind of, we've known each other for a few years now, and I've kind of got a bit of a window into the work that you do through our awards program. Particularly, fascinated by some of the stuff that you've done in Alaska, where you're bringing together this kind of great mix of media, and so much these days there is an obsession about digital, and I understand why, but actually it's about using all of the components from, in some cases, great newspaper work, direct mail work, blending all of that in with your television, using digital to kind of lift all of that. I'm interested in how you see that kind of the media mix environment evolving as we go into 2020 and beyond, and how you're thinking about it when you're advising campaigns across the country and up and down the ballot.
Well, age-wise, I've been doing campaigns a long time, going back to before some of these technologies. So, to me, every campaign is different. I'm a bit of a contrarian because every campaign is different, and there is no formula that you can put together and say, this is right, this is wrong, this is how much digital. All these things that say X amount of digital.
Yeah.
I use them all, but I work backwards. Everything to me comes from people are too worried about some of the mechanisms, and the first thing to me is find a good candidate. Find a candidate that has a message. Make sure then you look at how do you put that message out where people will see it, and that sometimes takes different configurations. And in some areas, it's more or less of each one of the different mediums. And to me, it's like having a brain and saying, how do I reach the people? And no one single thing should take a particular percentile of the budget.
And one of the challenges here is the kind of silos that we have and get created, and some campaigns do a better job of breaking those down than others. And you've got one group that's advocating for more on this, another side that's advocating for more on that. Mm-hmm. How do you break down those silos when you're involved in a campaign to ensure that it is about the eyeballs and saying that listen, we want to reach these folks, and this is the best allocation of resources to do it? A little bit less of that, a little bit more of that, and so on.
Again, every race being different. I'm a big proponent of following the purpose of polling is messaging. It's not to see where you're at in the polls. It's to see where the eyeballs are, and to figure out what people pay attention to, and then you put your message in those places. And the reality to me is you're looking for a message that just explodes in people's brains, and wherever you can make that explode, it frankly is a lot easier to make it explode in television. No matter what people say about digital, there's so many digital channels, and as I just recently commented, having to give out the awards at the Polly's in Napa Valley, is I had to look at what every company did, and the ironic thing is every single company has the exact same. This is what we do better. This is we have better data. We have the better verticals. We delivered all the verticals.
The secret sauce.
The secret sauce.
We have the artificial intelligence.
And I'm an old school human communicator, which is the secret sauce is, it's like I tell a lot of young people, maybe you ought to just drop out of everything for a while if all you've ever done is politics, and go work in a lumber yard or something. The secret sauce is knowing how to communicate with people. And actually that can be delivered in almost every different way. I've come to believe I could do a campaign with all digital. I could do a campaign with all radio. I've done campaigns with all newspaper, believe it or not. And you've just got to figure out where your audience is, and you got to be able to hit people somewhere in the funny bone or in the heart.
And that kind of brings up the other side of this discussion, which I find fascinating. Again, today there's a huge amount of focus on medium, targeting, data, things like that. And there's often less conversation about message, which is ultimately more fundamental, right? In fact, you could argue that that was a big factor in 2016. Of course, many other races being able to take a candidacy, take a campaign, boil it down to its essentials, and to be able to communicate that in a direct and powerful way to voters. Talk to me about, do you see that issue cropping up in campaigns where people are more focused on the technical side than they are about the actual message?
Yes, I do, and I think it's the area where, again, I think, most of us who became consultants, who everybody thinks are the old-time consultants, I found it interesting seeing a couple of panels where people who were young, they're thinking, hello, we've been there. That's
well, you guys at the Polys, which I sadly missed this year, but you guys did a session where you had a bunch of the old guard, as it were, on the stage, diving into stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and there is no secret sauce. The secret sauce is understanding how to feel something that is out in the marketplace, and that changes on a regular basis. It changes within a campaign, and it's very hard for somebody who has lived in front of a computer screen in their basement to get that. And they've got to get out and have a little bit more of a real life experience. Can they do it with a computer? Sure, but you've got to be able to do it. You've got to be able to sort of hit the button that just sort of touches somebody's funny bone, and it's hard to do. It's hard to do. It's magic, and I will. Maybe someday we'll all be mechanized, and it'll just be, I saw 5 messages, I will vote. I don't think that's going to happen soon.
You talked about polling, and of course it is a tremendously important tool when it comes to message development, finding out what's interesting to voters. That said, we balance that against sort of concerns around polling methodology, how difficult it is now, how costly it is now to reach people, and that's going to have real down ballot implications. Been some really fascinating recent pieces just about how difficult it is becoming to get people to pick up the phone, and again, that cost gets transferred down to the campaign. Does that concern you? How do you see that area of the industry, which is so integral to how decisions are made, resource allocation, message development, and so on? Does that concern you? How do you see that evolving?
It gets back to the finesse of it. Again, I mean, yes, that's the big issue. Everybody says, it's becoming more and more difficult to get good information. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I mean, the pollsters I work with, what a lot of people don't understand is just plain, public opinion polling, who's up, who's down, and all that means nothing. You really are looking for any kind of message development where people just feel comfortable sharing with you what's going on in their heads and what matters to them. And if you're really good at it, thus far I haven't seen anything change. I mean, the pollsters I work with give me the information that has helped me win elections that were totally unwinnable. I just won an election for an alcohol tax, and everything said everybody was ready to say yes, tax them on alcohol, and we beat it by a million miles. And we beat it just because we got inside people's heads and we saw what was making them tick. And I have not seen that change yet. And that's more just the ability to have dialogue with people and get them to share something. Yeah, I mean, you can do it a little bit with focus groups. I'm not a big fan of focus groups because I've sat in them, and strong personalities can move people on it. But polling, I don't see as the good pollsters. Every one of the ones I've worked with have been spot on right up till the very end.
Looking at the industry generally, you touched on some of this already. I'm really interested in, given your background and your perspective, the number of races you worked on, what are the kind of, basic mistakes or otherwise that you see, maybe it's newer consultants or campaigns generally making, that sort of leave you kind of shaking your head like that's not the way to do it? What are the common pitfalls, the common errors that the campaigns can and should avoid?
Well, again, I think the biggest thing is in your campaign structure, not having it based on what we see more and more and more is, and I came from the same background. I mean, I sat there and I watched people do it, and I thought I can do better than that, and I charged in and I ran into a brick wall. I'm about to do a forum out in Seattle for the very basic thing of saying, look, to all you younger people, we got a bunch of old people up here who will tell you how many times we ran into a brick wall, what stupid mistakes we made, and maybe it'll help you and you'll make them less frequently than we did. But the stupid mistakes are how you grow. But the key to me is you've got to have enough dimension to be able to relate to the people that you're trying to communicate with, not the bells and whistles and put them all in the right place and push the right buttons at the right time. I just think the formulaic putting together of a campaign and having, this piece and that piece and that piece, that's not going to take you over the finish line unless you know what's going on in people's heads and what makes them tick. I've never seen that change.
Yeah.
Good candidate, good message, and you've got the right tools then to put it in front of people, and you do it with messaging that is in their language, not your language.
Yeah.
Biggest problem I see is I see it over and over and over again, where people sit around a table and say, "Oh, this will be funny. This will be great." Funny to you, it's not funny to everybody, and it is real. That's why it's a narrow band of those of us who do this.
Yeah.
Funny is something where you need to put yourselves in the shoe. When I do campaigns in other parts of the country, I'll be working on something else, and it'll be like a small place in West Texas, and I'll just put on the radio stations there, and I'll let them play while I work. Mm-hmm. And I'll just listen to how people talk in that particular place in West Texas. Mm-hmm. And you develop a message that is not, what you think will deliver the facts.
Yeah.
It's how do you just sort of say it fast, say it slow,
yeah. Get a real feel for the place.
Massage it to where people say, "I felt that, I believed it," and that's to me what I hope we don't lose in this industry, because those of us who have been in it for a long time, we did work in lumber yards, we did go do other things, and there's something about this industry that there are those of us who are basically crazy, and we just get bored with everything else, and so politics is what drives us, and we've got to work all the time. But we know what makes people tick because we've lived a real life, and that to me is the biggest thing. I mean, if people get away from that, you're never gonna speak to people unless you live the life that the people you're communicating with live.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Art, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate having you on our video series.
You do a great service. Love this podcast.
I appreciate you saying that. And thank you as well for joining us. And of course, thanks always to our sponsor, Popolsky Research, for opinion research on politics and public policy. Check out our other videos on the Campaigns and Elections Facebook page, and of course on the video page at campaigns@elections.com. Thank you.